Okay. Okay. Welcome to Speech Talk Live, episode 16, segment number 3. In this segment, we're going to look at one of the last public speech that Steve Jobs gave. And this was a different kind of a speech. In this show that we do, the first speech we looked at was the Stanford commencement address that he gives in 2005, which is considered one of the best commencement speech ever given. Then we looked at the iPhone launch, the first iPhone launch in 2007, which revolutionized just about how we work today and communicate and interact with people. This is, in a way, something that he kicked off, but of course he died 4 months later. But the construction that will take place, it's like a new Apple site that they want to move to in Cupertino. So in this speech is a different Steve Jobs. This is a speech where he doesn't have the control. The control belongs to the council, Cupertino Council, that he's going in front of to show them why they should approve this particular project that is the construction of the new Apple complex that'll house close to 12,000 people. And again, this is the speech where he is very thin, as you can see. He doesn't have that energy that you typically are used to seeing. Nevertheless, it is a very compelling speech. And what he does in this speech, which I think is effective, is by not having that techniques that he typically has at his disposal, yet he still uses some of the same techniques that makes his speech so fun to listen to, as far as using these words to paint pictures. Like, again, his favorite word is always pretty cool. Isn't this pretty cool what we can do? And every little thing that other people will probably miss, he's pointing out that this building that they're building is, again, it's like a launch in a way. It's kind of interesting that we saw the iPhone launch presentation. This is like a building launch. That's what it really is. He's launching a building. Of course, the building hasn't been built yet, but it has to get approved. But if you look at the figures that he's showing, that we're going to have trees. We're going to have lots of trees. It's not just trees. We're going to have lots of trees. We're going to have double the landscape. And these people are like salivating, like, we want it now. Can you do it today? They can't do it today. But that's what it kind of makes you feel like, that after you see that presentation, you want to work there. Or you forget the work there. You just want to see this building, built quickly, so that you can see his vision that he's painting in front of the council. And he's describing all the stuff that would get people excited. And the thing that he's trying to get to these people is that you better approve this, because this is like going to make you famous if you approve this. And how can the people say no to this? And at the end, I just watched the speech part, but then there's a Q&A part, and these people really are sold already. You can tell that this was and typically I don't know if you ever attended a council meeting. Hardly anybody ever attends it, but this one looks like it's completely packed, and there are people you can see in the background taking pictures. So this is an event, and even though he is weak, the speech itself is very strong as far as what he's trying to convey, that this is the future of not only Cupertino, but of Silicon Valley. And he, of course, will never see it completed, but after he's presented, you're kind of rooting for him, that they better approve this, because this is something we all want to see. So I thought this speech was it's the last speech he gives, yet I think you can see a lot of the Steve Jobs techniques that he uses in the past comes out in this speech. Of course, he's not moving, but still, I thought it was a very compelling speech, a very effective speech in the way he delivers it.
Yeah, who is going next? Yeah.
Julie, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you. Um, yes, Jay, this was a very, very compelling speech and was a very forceful speech. And he carried over many of the techniques. In fact, one of the words he repeated in every three speeches was the word gorgeous, gorgeous. But the tone of this meeting was one of poignancy, of a kind of a sweet sorrow. Um, we know that he was very sick. You can see by his gaunt situation. And what I want to point out here is the force that's not in the words, the emptiness or the liminal space between the words, because he is dying. So, in the first speech, he said, "Live each day as your last," and that's coming to the fore. The other thing he believed in is live to your gut, trust your gut, and change the world, right? And he is offering his legacy here of changing the world in terms of the environment. And he started with this speech was saying, as you know, we've been in Cupertino from a 2 people to a 28,000 people organization, and 12,000 of our people are renting space, and they're not that great a space. So he manipulated people's emotions without saying the word, "I love you guys, do this because they're good. I stuck with you when things went great, so now live my vision." And then finally, of course, he always says, live to your gut, right? Let the future speak for itself. Do what you trust. So, but here he is bringing forth a vision of indigenous trees, 80% landscaping, leading edge technology of the glass he's fabricating, and apricot orchards. So I think I would say that the speech was very, very forceful. It wasn't full of dramatic gestures. In fact, it was very quiet and gaunt. But I would say this was his most forceful speech because he spoke of love in the beginning, but he never used the word. But you could feel it throughout, and his dedication and what he wants to leave to the world before his passing. So this was a speech into passage of existence. So that's an empty space, a liminal space. And he did that by evoking that emotion without actually using the words. So his pure presence brought forth that feeling for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was excellent. Latesh?
Yeah, thanks, Julie J. This was one of I think, the last appearance on TV by Steve after he had gone through the surgery. So he was definitely looking weak, as we can see in the video. He looked really weak and tired, but still, the way he was actually, his replies to the questions that were being raised by the authorities were like having a flavor of humor, as well as there were like real points that he wanted to convey, that Cupertino is going to benefit a lot by having Apple to be setting up the space there. So 150 acres completely being furnished with a lot of trees. He's going to build one of the best architecture marvel. He's saying that one of the only buildings which is completely circle in shape, with even the glasses in circular shape. So that's something that was like completely packed with the latest whatever is the latest offerings that is there in the building structure. So that is going to be incorporated. 4 stories building and 4 stories of parking with energy centers, backup power, and fitness centers, and everything that you can actually imagine a state-of-the-art office building should have. So Cupertino is going to benefit so much from this investment that he's going to make. So when somebody raises that, what is that we are going to get? He said that we being the largest taxpayer in Cupertino, if we go and set up, say, do you really want us to go back from here to somewhere else? So those kind of, he's so confident that he has so much to give, so much to offer. So there is no way that the community is going to refuse any kind of approvals. And I think his speech was, though he was really tired with the kind of procedures that he was going through, but he was still having a lot of punch in what he was talking about. And he had a vision, and the vision was definitely, to make a difference not only to society at large, but also to the city where he had been brought up. He wanted to make a difference there itself, giving back to the community, but at a price. So, right, that's about it. Thanks. Back to you, Jay.
Thanks, Litesh. Somyan, any thoughts on that speech?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, certainly the points I wanted to talk about have already been mentioned by all of you. This was more like a product design presentation. It was, the entire project was being presented with all its aesthetic beauty and things like that. Even went into small details like the curved glass. Of course, in a large circular building like that, even if the glass were flat and it was made of thousands of flat plates of glass, you know what I mean, perfectly right. There was no need for that glass to have that very slight curvature, etc. But then he went on to say, look, it will be curved glass and so on and so forth. I mean, he perhaps wanted to trigger the people's imagination that way. Then I also thought that he customized. Normally when you know who your audience are and what is their interest, you can always tune your speech in such a way that it will be appropriate to their interest. In a city council like that, they'll be interested in some kind of regulatory concerns or some kind of environmental concerns and things like that. He addresses every one of those things for which they are supposed to be sensitive to, or they are supposed to be basing their decision on. Okay, so he doesn't get into product technology, etc. That is taken for granted. Now he's going to only talk about the flow space index, the amount of water he will use, the amount of electricity he will use, how much he will perhaps burden the utility, how much he will burden the city's infrastructure, and so on and so forth. He's trying to say, I'm going to be low in footprint and all these factors. I already am there in multiple campuses, and I'm going to consolidate them into one. And this is a place that was already owned by HP, and HP had its facility. I'm replacing this with a new facility. When I'm bringing in a new building, that's going to be aesthetically beautiful, and then it is going to add to the city. We are going to be loyal to Cupertino. We are always in Cupertino. We are going to stay with you. So like this, he keeps bringing back this again and again. Then when you say you're going to accommodate something like 12,000 employees there, for any community and society, 12,000 employees being located there would also mean that there's so much more commerce for their community, and maybe some residential accommodations that are being given away, and so on and so forth. That is going to be attractive to them. Even the trees. If the place was known for that apricot orchard, he wants to trigger that emotional thing, saying that, look, we are going to have the apricot orchard here in the free space, etc. So he places a lot of emphasis on these kind of small details. One of the things that a product designer does is to bring in beauty in the way small details are implemented. That's how product design is is sold in terms of ergonomics and aesthetics and such things. So he does exactly that here. That was really a very interesting way by which he sort of customized it to the kind of audience that he was talking to. That was beautiful. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, those are excellent points. The one thing I will add is something came up that Somyan had mentioned. This is an example of when he says stay hungry and stay foolish, because Apple already settled in Cupertino. They already have office buildings and stuff. But like Latesh was saying, staying hungry, you can't rest. And as you can see, he's dying, yet he's still hungry, and he's still foolish, right? Like he's doing so many things here that nobody's ever done, and it becomes addictive. This is a part of who he is, and it's also something that if you feel so strongly about what you're doing, it becomes contagious. Other people will catch it and saying, wow, I really believe his vision. Even I can support it. And what he's really telling Cupertino here is that, do you want to be relevant? Right? We made you relevant. Do you want to be relevant for posterity? You're making a history here. And that is something that people are just not going to walk away from. And what he's telling these council members is that you only have one chance in life to say, I had something to do with that approval. And if you don't get with the program, then you're going to miss out on history. So, and what he's saying is, listen, have I let anybody ever down before? If you notice that speech that he started out with, when he tells a story about how he got a job at HP from Bill, just contacting Bill Euler. So he's kind of giving them this whole history of how he's seen this Silicon Valley go from nothing, and now he's taking it to the next level. And that's what he's bringing to this council, that it's in your hands to transition it. I may not be here. I can give you the vision, but it's in your power to make that vision become real. And that's what he's trying to convince them. And who's going to say no to that? And so at the end, that's what this speech is. It's his example of saying staying hungry and staying foolish. Like, you're going to have 12,000, nothing like this ever been done. And that's the thing that he's putting in front of this council, that this is what my life is, and I may not have that much more time to live, but I am going to live up to that motto: stay hungry and stay foolish. So that's my closing thought. Julie, any closing?
Before others say, I want to raise one more point. Maybe you can try and answer that if possible. But one thing that was not clear to me is whether this speech was supposed to be so much of a challenging situation. Was the city council going to disapprove things? Was it difficult to get approvals, or was it a very routine thing that if he just makes a presentation, it's a formality and it will get approved? I couldn't see why a city council will refuse to have organizations such as Apple, and its a new project getting approved. Perhaps it was not so challenging a situation. That's perhaps one thought I had. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a formality in one sense, but it's politics also. So he just wants to make sure what the city council could do. This is the thing, they could delay it, and that's what he doesn't want. So city council could say, we need this study, we need an environmental study, we need water study, we need air pollution study, we need electrical study, how it's going to traffic study. So what he's trying to really do here is that it's not going to be stopped, but it can certainly be delayed, and sometimes delay is a kiss of death. And that's what he's trying to forestall, that don't delay this anymore. Everything has been done. Like, look at the traffic thing. We're going to, I don't know if he addresses the traffic issue much at all, but he's talking about the landscaping, which is important to people in California. So there are so many different angles that he's pursuing, but the main thing I think he's trying to convey, and I can't really answer the history of this, is that the council does have the power to delay approving it, and that's what he doesn't want. Julie?
Yeah, just say thank you. It's a great episode, and I find Steve's. I'm very grateful to you for pointing all this out. I find Steve's whole life to be very inspirational, and now I can appreciate it more, and his speaking skills too.
Latesh, closing thoughts?
Yes, I think all this talks that he gave today, that we saw today, all the videos that Jay you have shared about Steve Jobs were like the best of his the speeches that he had given. Especially the Cupertino one was one of his last public talks. So it was good to hear him talk, even though he was so weak and tired, but then he still had the punch in him. So thanks for bringing this up, yeah, it was one of his good last talks that we have actually heard. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Latesh. Somyan, closing thoughts?
Yeah. So the final thought on this last speech was that yes, he chose to personally do this speech to the city council. It was not as if official from his organization who was responsible for building approvals or whatever it is as a routine matter. The guy who was interacting with the city council went and made a presentation. It is Steve Jobs himself with all his global popularity and things like that, a tech giant. Okay, so he symbolizes Apple, and he himself personally came and made a plea. Okay, it was not left to a lower level official within his organization. So that way he emphasized the importance he placed to this. So that was also one of the factors, I think, that one is, that he did to endear himself to the council. Thank you.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, you just made a very important point, and this is a point that I think also that I completely missed, and I think after you just said it, it made me realize it. He is the head of Apple. I mean, at this point, he is retired because of, but still, people think of Steve Jobs. And what it shows that if you want to make a sale, then the head of the company has to be the best salesman in the company. You can't send some peon to say, get me this deal. If you want to make the deal, you got to be up there and sell it. So again, this is again shows that he is the best salesman at Apple, and here's how he has to get this particular project sold, and he does it. So that ends this segment. And at this point, if anybody has any last thoughts, I think we only have 4 minutes left before this thing shuts down. So, anybody has any